The Last Trip, the drover who beat the Capiroto. Welcome to the Old Facts and Stories channel. Here you will find fascinating content about past events and historical curiosities. Join us to explore the past and learn from it. Subscribe to our channel now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our content. Let's go to history. In the year 1830, a very famous drover was in demand because he was experienced in handling cattle, especially oxen that were left to be herded. He and 10 other cowboys were taking a herd to the state of Santa Catarina. It was a long trip, many months of traveling by sleeping outdoors and looking at the stars. The retinue that was leading the herd would stop at lunchtime to rest a bit, and then take a break for lunch. It was customary to count the oxen so as not to lose any. It was when he counted the herd that he realized that many oxen were missing. He told the other cowboys, "You go on with your cattle and I will look for the ones that were left behind." He walked all day and managed to find all the lost oxen, more than 1,000 oxen that were lost in the forests where they had passed. He managed to gather them all together and played slowly. He was very tired, and so were the oxen. When evening came, he built a fire, prepared food, had dinner, and covered the ground with cochineal, lay down and for a moment contemplated the starry sky, and then fell asleep. He woke up with the birds singing, got up, put down his horse, gathered his cattle, and went on his way. Soon he saw a farm and asked for a place to stay. The farmer gave him a place to stay and asked him his name. The drover said, "Louise." The farmer introduced himself as Inigio and said, "Louise, you can stay in the shed, you can use a bed. For the feed for your horse, just take it in the shed. Do you want to have dinner?" "I'll take it. I'm starving, I haven't eaten all day." Mr. Inigio was a lonely man. His wife had passed away and he hardly ever saw anyone. So, they talked until late. The next day, Louise got up and unhitched his horse to continue his trip. Mr. Inigio called for coffee and a cookie, and Louise went on his way carrying something to eat later. He rode all day, the cattle were very tired. Soon he spotted an abandoned cabin and spent the night in this house. He let the cattle rest for 2 days. There was a stream nearby and he went fishing in the cabin using a fishing rod. He caught several large fish, which he had enough for dinner and food the next day. On the 3rd day he went on his way and walked all day, but didn't find any houses along the way. Under a leafy tree he built a fire and spent the night there. The next day, he did the same thing again. He gathered his oxen and went on his way. In the afternoon, he camped again and, looking at the star-filled sky, said, "This is the last trip I will ever make. I'm going to get married and have a nice family. I'm going to buy a small farm and I'm not going to herd any more cattle. God will help me. I'm very tired and it's very exhausting. I'm going to herd the cattle that are in front. I've already gathered more than 1,000 oxen that were left behind. I'll take these cattle to the agreed place, come back, get my payment and go look for a little farm for myself. I'll buy some cows, raise chickens and pigs. I want to have a quiet life." And so he went on planning what he was going to do. He just didn't know that his destiny was written. He traveled for several days. 2 weeks later he spotted a big house nearby. There was a smaller house where 3 people lived, a man and 2 women. Arriving at the house, he greeted the residents and asked for shelter. The man said, "I have no place here. There is only the big house, but nobody can sleep there. It's haunted." He said, "I'm not afraid. I stay on the balcony of the big house and set up my hammock outside." The gentleman said, "If you can stay there, then you can stay." Louise asked, "What is your name?" And he replied, "Samuel." The drover said, "Mine is Louise." A beautiful girl and a lady came out. Samuel introduced the girl and said, "This is my daughter, Jasmine, and my wife, Tanya. It's a pleasure to meet you." My name is Louise. The girl was delighted with him. He was young and handsome. He immediately thought, could she be single? Samuel looked at the exchange of glances and said, I live here with just my wife and my daughter. Louise thought, I will stay here for a few days. I like this girl. Samuel said, you can stay as many days as you need. Thank you, sir. I will need it. The oxen are very tired. I need a few days to rest the cattle. I'm going to see the big house. Good luck, Louise. You'll need it. Let's make dinner. When it's ready, I'll call you. Thanks, Samuel. I'm going to need it. My supplies are gone, I have to go into town to buy some. Samuel said that there is no town nearby, we buy from farmers who live nearby. Then, come on, we have some things here. I'll get it for you, okay? Louise made his way to the big house by 5 p.m. When he got there, the veranda was very dirty. He took a broom and started sweeping. Soon, noises began, knocking things over inside the big house, making a lot of noise. But Louise wasn't afraid, he had been through similar things before, so he cleaned everything, tied the hammock and lit the 2 lamps that were there on the veranda. It was already dark when Samuel came to call him for dinner. He told him what had happened at the manor. Samuel handed Louise a firearm to protect him from the ghost. Samuel, bullets don't shoot at ghosts, said Louise. That's when Samuel's daughter took the powerful gun and gave Louise a cord from St. Francis. That one really works, thanks Jasmine. And when Samuel gave Louise a sausage, take it if you feel hungry, just roast it. Arriving at the caserio, Louise heard the sound of things falling down. He already knew about the ghost that lived in the big house, so he thought, why all these noises? He heard a man's voice calling for help and the other whipping. Why did you call for help? It was late. He couldn't sleep, he got up and went to make a fire and roast sausage on the wooden spit he made. He started to roast the sausage. A man with only one eye on his forehead came and sat down next to him with a frog on the spit. And looking at Louise, he began to roast the frog and leaning the frog against the sausage. Louise says, you want to roast your bag? Move over. Don't touch my sausage. The stranger continued to touch the sausage. Louise, irritated, shouted, I told you not to do that. Why do you want to fight? That's fine. I just want you to get out of here. I'm not leaving. I have permission to stay, is when the man who was being held prisoner bad spirit says, please release me, I have been imprisoned here for many years. I owned this manor and this land. He won't let anyone live here. Everyone who moves here, he threatens and haunts this place. Louise asked, why does he do this? It is because I have a fortune in gold and jewelry that I have saved to give to my heirs. But since I died earlier, I haven't had time to tell where it's buried. So this spirit won't let me tell where it is, so that I don't have peace and don't go to the light. I have been in prison for several years now, please help me. The bug gave a terrifying laugh and said, do you think this one will help you? He's terrified, he's going to run away soon, just like the others. Luis remembered the San Francisco cord that Jasmine had given him for protection. It was in his pocket. The gentleman who was being held prisoner spoke up, save me from my entire fortune. All right, I will free you, Louise replied. When Louise said this, the capiroto gave such a loud shout that Louise took the cord and tied the legs of the capiroto, who growled like a rabid beast and said, let me go, let me go. Mr. Samuel and his wife were terrified with so much noise they saw from the manor. They got close to see what was going on. They saw when Louise took the whip and began to whip the capiroto. That's when the prisoner said, Louise, you have to dig up the treasures. Louise asked, where is it? Come on, I'll show you. Tell him to let me go. Nice, Louise said. Let him go, take off the chains that bind him, said Mrs. Nice. The Capiroto didn't want to, and Louise whipped him again. The piece of the St. Francis cord that was left burned the Capiroto's body with each whipping. Put it there that he has released the prisoner, the spirit Simon said. It's under the 3 trees in front of you, he continued. Louise picked up the Capiroto and dragged him over there. He said, start digging. The spirit, named Simon, was showing him where the chests were, and the Capiroto was digging them out with his fingernails. It was a real fortune, gold, silver, jewels, precious stones of great value. After everything was out of the hole, Simon said, call his family, I need to talk. Louise called Samuel, who was already nearby. That's when Simon said, this man had the courage to set me free. So, the land and the house are his. The fortune is his, because if it wasn't for him, I would be in jail. Louise said, I'll share it with him. I want a share to buy a farm, a little cow, a horse, and to get married. I'll have peace of mind and no longer have to herd cattle, live away from my parents. The Capiroto said, now let me go, Louise said, the messengers have not yet arrived to take Simon to the light. Then I'll let you go. That's when a strong light came down and rescued Simon. Louise said, I will let you go when the sun rises. Legend has it that when a Capiroto sees the sunlight, he never comes back. You have to see the sun shine. It doesn't just burn me. At that, the sun began to shine. The Capiroto became desperate. Louise did as he said and released the bad animal, which disappeared. The Cordo de São Francisco hung in the big house. Louise rested for a few weeks, but he began to like Jasmine and asked his parents to court her. Her parents gave their consent, and the two began to date. After resting, Louise went to take the cattle and said, from there, I will settle with my boss, see my parents and come back so we can get married. I'll leave my fortune here and come back in a month. He went to deliver the bullock and talked to his parents about it, giving them a small fortune in precious stones as a gift. He said he was engaged to be married and was going to buy a farm near his fiancée's family. When it's close to the wedding, I'll send for you. Louise returned to his fiancée's house and immediately looked for a farm, but could not find one. Then Samuel said, you can live in the big house, which is already clean and organized. When you find the farm of your dreams, you can move in. Louise then arranged the wedding and looked for his parents. They were married with a beautiful party, making the bride and groom and the bride's parents very happy. Louise and Jasmine lived happily in the big house for years, but always dreamed of having their own farm. One day they found the perfect place and moved in, building an even fuller life together. And so our story ends. If you like this happy ending and want more content like this, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Here you will find exciting stories, fascinating curiosities, and much more. Do not waste time and subscribe now. Thank you all who follow. If you like, leave a like, share and see you next story.